The term I'll be looking at today is alternative history. This term is often associated with science fiction writing, but it can be used in the realms of postmodern and queer studies, which are the contexts I'll be using to define the term today. Alternative history is defined by Merriam-Webster as fiction that is based on history and that explores what might have happened if certain historical events, figures, etc. had been different, or a history that is told from an unusual or unorthodox perspective. For today, I am more interested in that second definition. I argue that feminist speculative fiction authors use alternative history to remove heteronormative patriarchal social structures and create new environments open to new ideas about race, gender, and sexuality. These authors use memory to construct alternative histories that shift power away from where it traditionally lies and into the hands of queer women. The doctoral thesis, Alternate History, Alternate Memory, Counterfactual Literature in the Context of German Normalization by Guido Schenkel was one academic resource I found that helped me understand this idea. It argued that alternative histories can often be read as examples of counter-memory, that is, as conscious deviations from accepted versions of history. Like other forms of counter-memory, such narratives intentionally subvert mainstream ways of representing the past in order to gradually effect a shift in the canon of official historical knowledge towards an inclusion of previously excluded aspects or interpretations of historical events. One example of a feminist author using memory to create an alternative history is in the short story The Inventory by Carmen Maria Machado. The story uses the memories of one queer woman as the basis for our understanding of the history of the world in the text. The story is told through an expansive list of all of the different sexual relationships the main character has had. The list itself seems normal enough, but in the background there is a secondary story about a pandemic that ravages the human race and brings about the end of civilization as we know it. The main character recounts relationships with both men and women, and sometimes sexual relationships with multiple partners. Pairing of a queer woman recounting her relationships and the end of the world makes it that by comparison, her queer relationships seem much more normal. The details the narrator chooses to mention seem almost absurd in their normalcy when set against the backdrop of the end of the world. The power shifts away from patriarchal and heteronormative recollections of history and is placed in the hands of a queer woman who creates a world where her queerness is an integral part of our understanding of her world. Another example is Octavia Butler's novel Fledgling, in which a young vampire named Shori loses all of her memories and must navigate the world without them. In this case, the absence of memory is what creates an alternative history. This lack of memory creates opportunities for new norms free from existing oppressive structures. L.H. Stallings writes in the essay Marvelous Stank Matter, The End of Monogamy, the Marriage Crisis, and Ethical Sledding, Shori's memory loss symbolizes the transitory nature of human ethics. In addition, memory loss makes it possible to create a narrative where the grammar of suffering, usually associated with Black characters, can be overwritten by non-human grammars. What feels right when there is no memory and no one tells us what to think? What is love when there is no Greek philosophy, no rational moralizing or sentimental romance narrative, or translation of other concepts of affection? Through Shori's lack of memories, Butler removes societal limitations that will be placed on her as a young Black woman, and opens the door to a world free from white, heteronormative, monogamous, and patriarchal structures. An example of modern media that also uses memory to construct an alternative history is the 2013 video game Gone Home. In the game, you play as 21-year-old Caitlin Greenbrier, who has just returned home from a trip abroad in Europe to the new house her parents and sister have recently moved into. But instead of a big family welcome, she arrives to an empty house and a mysterious note taped to the door. Though you play as Caitlin, the story is really about her 17-year-old sister Sam and her initial alienation at a new school before meeting and becoming close friends with a girl named Lonnie. It is their relationship that forms the narrative core of the game. You spend the game in a familiar first-person style, exploring the house. The story unfolds as you pick up scraps of paper, notes, letters, photos, cassettes, tapes, and other bits and pieces littering the house. Sam also narrates a series of journal entries that serve as the main vehicle for telling the story. Throughout the game, the player discovers that Sam started a romantic relationship with Lonnie and that her parents did not approve. They were in denial that their daughter was a lesbian, and Sam's final journal entry reveals that she has packed up her things and took her car, hoping to start a new life with Lonnie. Again, the memories of a queer woman are used to construct an alternative history that critiques normal methods of recounting history and empowers the perspective of a queer woman over any other perspective. One quote from Schenkel that I found particularly pertinent when looking at why authors would do this was, as a genre, alternate history is intimately linked to the category of memory. As a large number of scholars of the genre have posited, despite the apparent narrative focus on the past, alternate history's primary concern is for the present. The general argument is that fictional versions of altered past and the consequences they bear for the future are not an end in itself, but must be read as either affirmations or critical comments on the contemporary status quo. Here, the link between alternate history and memory is especially evident, for as Siobhan Cadigo points out, memories of the past perhaps tell us more about the present society than about the past, because memory is a dynamic, fluid activity framed by social groups and located in symbolic places. The activity of remembering is guided by the needs of the present. Alternative histories serve a grander purpose than just imagining what would have happened if certain parts of history were different. They can be used to dismantle and reconstruct our understanding of our present world and the different powers within it.